All right, so in this lesson, we are going to be doing adding and subtracting decimals. Please only watch this video if you are doing adding and subtracting decimals with negatives. So please make sure you are watching the video that is right for you. So beware. All right, so how to add and subtract decimals. So step one, you need to make sure that you determine your integer rules. So if you remember back from the beginning of the school year, we talked about integer rules, and I've repeated them here for you in step two. So you have really two sets of integer rules, one for addition, one for subtraction. So your integer rules for addition are same sign or different sign. So for same sign, you add and you keep. Okay, so you add the two numbers together and you keep the sign, whether that's positive or negative. For different sign with addition, you're going to completely ignore the signs, subtract the numbers, and then keep the sign of the bigger number. Then when you move on to subtraction, you are going to use the tic-tac-toe or a different method if you choose, but you're going to do keep, change, change. So you're going to keep the first number, change the subtraction to addition, and then change the sign of the second number. And I have an example here using decimals. So I had a negative number plus a positive number, so I'm going to ignore the signs, subtract the two numbers, and when I did that, I ended up with 1.478. But then when I go back to the original problem, 3.45 was the bigger number, it was negative, and so my answer is negative. All right, let's take a look. So here I have negative 5.62 plus 4.19. So I have a negative plus a positive, okay? So I'm going to ignore the signs and subtract the two numbers. 5.62 minus 4.19. And I know that it feels really odd to do a subtraction problem within an addition problem, but make sure that you're following the correct procedure. So 2 minus 9 can't do it, so we need to go ahead and borrow. We have a 5, and then this becomes a 12. So 12 minus 9 is 3, 5 minus 1 is 4. Bring down your decimal point, and then you have a 1. Go back up to your original problem, 5.62, 4.19. Which number is bigger? The 5.62 is bigger, it's negative, and so your answer is going to be negative. So your answer is negative 1.43. Okay, next problem, negative 12.1 plus negative 8.57. We have an addition sign. The numbers have the same sign, so we add and we keep. So I'm going to do 12.1 plus 8.57. Now, notice very carefully how I lined up the decimal points here. Well, I'm a little bit crooked, but my effort is noted. So lining up the decimal points, which left me with an empty space here and an empty space here. I'm going to put a 0 as a placeholder, and then I'm going to go ahead and add. Those placeholders are important. We use them in comparing decimals and in ordering decimals, and they're very important in adding and subtracting as well. 7 plus 0 is 7. 1 plus 5 is 6. Bring down your decimal point. 8 plus 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 plus 0 is 2. Now we added, but don't forget to keep. You're going to keep the negative sign. So your answer is negative 20.67. Okay, 14.54 minus 11.23. Now, if you notice this is a larger number minus a smaller number, you can do a basic decimal subtraction problem with that. If you didn't recognize that right off the bat, keep, change, change would work just as well. Okay, but I'm going to just go ahead and subtract the numbers. So, or the decimals, 14.54 minus 11.23. 4 minus 3 is 1, 5 minus 2 is 3, 4 minus 1 is 3, and 1 minus 1 is 0, so my answer is 3.31. Okay? All right, here I have negative 5.35 minus 4.761. So I'm a big fan of the tic-tac-toe, and so that is what I'm going to do. If you don't like the tic-tac-toe, you can use a different method of your choosing. but the tic-tac-toe helps me organize. So I do keep, change, change. So I keep negative 5.35, change minus to plus, and then I change positive 4.761 to negative 4.761. What this just gave me is an addition problem with two decimals with now the same sign, which is negative. So now what I'm going to do is add and keep 5.35 and then 4.761. Add a 0 as a placeholder. So I'm going to add 1 plus 0 is 1, 5 plus 6 is 11, 7 plus 3 is 10, plus 1 is 11, 1 plus 5 is 6, and then 6 plus 4 is 10. Now I added, please, please, please don't forget to keep your sign though. So your answer is negative 10.111. All right, over here, 9.67 minus 0.635. Now again, you may notice that this is a basic subtraction problem with decimals, but again, if it doesn't strike you right off the bat, you can do keep, change, change, and it works the same way. But I'm going to just go ahead and subtract. 9.67 minus 0.6, make my decimal points bigger, 635. I'm going to put a 0 as my placeholder, and I'm going to subtract. So I need to borrow, so that's going to be a 6. This is going to become a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 6 minus 3 is 3. 6 minus 6 is 0. Bring down the decimal point. 9 minus 0 is 9. And so my answer is 9.035, or 9 35 thousandths. All right, so here we have a whole number and we have a decimal, and those can sometimes get tricky because you need to make sure you're lining up the decimal point properly. But we also have a lot of negatives going on, and it's a subtraction problem, so it's screaming keep, change, change. So again, I like to do tic-tac-toe, but you need to use the method that works best for you. So I'm going to draw a little tic-tac-toe board on it. So I have keep, change, change. I'm going to keep the negative 11, change the minus to a plus, and change the negative 2.4 to a positive 2.4. Now that I did that, what I have is an addition problem, but I have different signs. So what that tells me is I need to ignore the signs and subtract. So I have 11 minus 2.4. But the problem becomes, where does the decimal point go on this 11? Does it go right here, or does it go right here? It goes right here, okay? That becomes very important because you need to line up the decimal properly. All right, now we're going to go ahead and subtract. We need to borrow. If you're not good at borrowing, you need to make sure that you practice, practice, practice. Okay, so we ended up with 8.6, but now what's my sign? Go back to your problem here. Which is bigger, 11 or 2.4? 11 is, it's negative, and so your answer is negative 8.6. All right, so now we have some variables here, and I know we haven't talked much about variables yet, but a variable is kind of like letters in math, and we'll get to that when we talk about expressions. But here we have 6.652 plus p, and what is p? Well, here is p, and in this case, p is negative 2.8, and so all you're going to do is plug this value in for p. So what this is going to say is 6.652 plus, and it's a very, very, very good habit when you put a number in for a variable or for a letter to put it in parentheses, because what that does is it just helps you organize it a little bit better. Okay, and while I'm at it, I'm going to plug this one in as well, 9.721 minus. Now in this case especially, because p is negative, you don't want your negative and your minus signs to become all jumbled. So parentheses are also very helpful with that. All right, so over here I have a positive number plus a negative number, which tells me I have different signs. So I ignore the signs, I subtract, and I keep the sign of the bigger number. So I need to go ahead and line them up to subtract. 2 minus 0, 0, or 2 minus 2, 2 minus 0, 2, 5 minus 0, 5. Can't do 6 minus 8, so I need to borrow. 16 minus 8 is 8. 5 minus 2 is 3. Now, which is the bigger number, 6.652 or 2.8? It's 6.652. So my answer in this case is going to be positive. Now over here, I have a subtraction problem, so I'm going to set up a tic-tac-toe situation. If you don't like tic-tac-toe, you use a method of your choosing, but keep change is the way to do it. 9.721, change the minus to a plus, and change the negative 2.8 to a positive 2.8. Now I have the same sign, and they're both positive, so I'm going to line them up, and my answer will be positive. Add zeros as placeholders. 1 plus 0 is 1. 2 plus 0 is 2. 7 plus 8 is 15. Bring down my decimal. 9 plus 1 is 10. Plus 2 is 12. Final answer is 12.521. All right, so we have here for you to try. We have some here for you to try, so go ahead and try these out, and then we will compare our answers. All right, if you're not done, go ahead and pause the video, and if you are done, we can go ahead and compare answers. So number 1 was a basic subtraction problem. You should have ended up with 3.778. Number 2 was an addition problem, different signs, so you subtract, and your answer should have been positive because the bigger number was a positive 13.009. Number 3 and number 4 were subtraction problems. Now with number 3, you would have gotten an answer of negative 10.80. You can write negative 10.80, or you could drop the 0 at the end and write negative 10.8. The 0 at the end is not necessary. And for number 4, you should have gotten negative 7.7. All right, that is the end of your crash course of decimals with negatives. We will practice more in class.